Thank you, Chair. We are now live.
Thank you very much for that. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this virtual overview and scrutiny committee meeting that is being conducted with members and officers at various locations, communicating via audio, video and online. There is also the opportunity for the public and press to listen and view proceedings. Before the meeting starts, I would like to invite the committee, member and scrutiny officer to explain how proceedings will work and to confirm that members and officers are present. Anna, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll undertake the roll call first of all. When I call your name, please can you indicate your attendance to confirm the required members and officers are present and can be heard. Councillor David Levitt.
Present.
Councillor Kate Aspinwall. Councillor Aspinwall.
I am present, sorry.
Thank you. That's
Okay,
okay.
off mute.
Councillor Bryant. She's currently absent. Councillor Sam Collins.
Hello.
Hello. Councillor Morgan Derbyshire.
Present.
Councillor Tony Hunter.
Present.
Councillor Jim McNally.
Present.
Councillor Lisa Nash.
Yeah, present.
Councillor Sue Nguala.
Present.
Councillor Adam Ruggiero Checker.
Present.
Councillor Claire Strong.
Present.
And Councillor Tom Tyson. He's currently absent. And also in attendance, Councillor Martin Steers Hanscom.
Present.
Councillor Judy Billing. Don't think she's here. Councillor Keith Hoskins.
Good evening.
Councillor Helen Oliver.
Evening.
Councillor Ian Albert.
Yes.
And Councillor Elizabeth Dennis Harburg.
Here.
Thank you. And officers, we should have Rebecca Coates.
Here.
Rachel Cooper.
Present.
Crowley.
Present.
Hilary Deneen.
Present.
Joe Dufficy.
Present.
William Edwards.
Present.
Chloe Gray.
Present.
Chris Jeffrey.
Present.
Gemma Mitchell.
Present.
Helen Ray.
Present.
Chris Robson.
Present.
And Jeanette Thompson. Jeanette, are you here?
Anna, I've also just had a message from Judy Billing to say that the credentials won't let her into the meeting.
Okay. We can try giving her a phone call and try and get her in. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Have I missed anybody from the roll call? Quite a lot of people. I don't want to miss anybody out.
I don't know whether you missed me. Jeanette Thompson,
Oh.
Service Director, Legal and Community and Safeguarding Lead Officer.
Thank you
Named
very much.
officer.
Councillor Strong has their hand up. Is there something?
Yeah. Was I the only one that got invited to join a breakout room?
No, don't worry about it.
Do apologise about that, Councillor Strong. That was sent an error, technical problem.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Billing is just coming in now. I'll just move on to the proceedings. Extracts from the remote and partly remote meetings protocol are included with the agenda, and the full version is available on the Council's website, which includes information regarding live streaming, noise interference, rules of debate, voting and Part 2 items. Members are requested to ensure that they are familiar with the protocol. Are there any questions before we start the meeting? Okay, I'll now hand over to the Chair, Councillor David Levitt. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, and also welcome to all the Cabinet members and officers as well this evening. Apologies for absence. I have one from Councillor Terry Hone and Councillor Morgan Derbyshire is substituting for him. Do I have any other apologies? No. Thank you. Any notification of any other business? There is none. Chairman's announcements. In accordance with council policy, this meeting is being audio and video recorded. The audio recordings will be available to view on mod.gov and the film recording via the NHDC YouTube channel. Members are reminded to make declarations of interest before an item. The detailed reminder about this and speaking rights is set out under Chair's announcements on the agenda. Item 5, public participation. We have none. Item 6 is urgent and general exception items. There is one item this month on business rates pooling, and as Chair of Overview and Scrutiny, I agreed that an urgent report regarding the business rate pooling be considered by Cabinet. Item 7, called in items, we have none. And item 8 is resolutions of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Hilary Dineen to present. Hilary.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just draw attention to a couple of main points and then open for questions. Page 9, the commercial update. Obviously, Steve Crowley is here to do that this evening. Page 9, devolution and recovery. Anthony, Managing Director, advised that the white paper regarding devolution and recovery has been delayed, and therefore his attendance should be deferred until such time as timescales are more clear. Page 10, the design SPD, that is now being considered by Cabinet in March. So we'll come to overview and scrutiny at that same time. And page 10, waste routes, Councillor Dennis Harburg is here this evening, and we'll talk to you under item 13, the monitoring of the PIs. Are there any questions?
I don't appear to have any questions. Any comments, queries, suggestions for that one? No, thank you. The resolution is to note the report, and there are no other recommendations. Can I take that as noted by everybody? Thank you. Item 9, overviewing scrutiny committee work programme. Hilary again, please.
Thank you, Chair. So again, I'll just highlight a few things. Page 15, paragraph 8.3, crime and disorder meeting. So we've come round to the time of year where the overview and scrutiny have their annual crime and disorder meeting. Last year you had a lovely, well, I say lovely, brilliant presentation by Becky Coates, the Community Protection Manager, and the Chief Inspector, Sally, and her name has gone from my head, I do apologise. Thank you. Thank you very much, Sally Phillips, regarding county lines and knife crime. If any member has any ideas for a subject for January, please do email me. If we don't get a subject, then Becky and the Chief Inspector will decide on a subject to inform you about. Thank you. Paragraph 8.7, you have the forward plan in front of you. So please let me know, or let the chair know, if there's any items that you want on future meetings. The big item is paragraph 8.10, the task and finish group protocol. So I've attached the existing protocol at Appendix D, and Appendix E, which was sent out on a supplementary, is the proposed new protocol. The current protocol was agreed in March 2016, but since this protocol was agreed, the committee has in practice not adhered to the protocol for all task and finish groups. And the practice of varying the process has, as you all know, caused some confusion. The Constitution does lay out certain aspects of how our task and finish group is to be managed and what it's for. And I've included in the protocol paragraph 6.2.7 of the Constitution, which details what the committee can do regarding task and finish groups. There are other paragraphs, but I'm not going to run through them. It's up to you whether you want me to include more or not. Just so you're aware, I did undertake research looking at task and finish group protocols and guidance of 10 other authorities. it's really clear that our protocol, the 2016 protocol, was extremely comprehensive when compared to other authorities' protocols. And it was also clear that, sorry, I'm repeating myself, when considering updating the 2016 protocol, it also became clear that although it was important to detail the basic process, there needed to be some flexibility to ensure the best outcome for the different types of review that you could undertake. So the main amendments is I've tidied up the layout and amended job titles, etc., because obviously, for instance, SMT is no longer in existence and different job titles have changed. The main amendments I want to draw your attention to are paragraph 1.2 of the proposed protocol. And this recognises that in future there may be smaller political parties, and it allows for a provision to enable those parties to take place. Paragraphs 1.10 and 4.2, you'll see there's 3 versions. They refer to the same thing, but they're just one's in the principles, one's in the main protocol. The previous protocol stated that the report of the leadership team should not be presented to Cabinet or Council, sorry, to Overview and Scrutiny, but be presented to Cabinet and Council. The Overview and Scrutiny has, since the approval of that protocol in March 16, asked for comments from the leadership team, which was previously SMT, to be presented to Overview and Scrutiny. For instance, in July 2017, they asked for the leadership comments on the task and finish group on larger projects. The comments of the leadership team could inform the committee in making recommendations, and this would make the scrutiny process more comprehensive and ensure that recommendations result in a full and detailed consideration of all aspects. It is for the committee to decide a way forward. I've provided you with 3 versions of the paragraph. The first is the status quo, that the leadership team comments go to Cabinet or Council. The second reverses that and says the leadership report will be presented to Overview and Scrutiny and on to Cabinet or Council. The third provides some flexibility, which is what I was talking about, and says it will not normally be presented to Overview and Scrutiny, but the Overview and Scrutiny Committee or Chair can opt for it to be presented to the committee alongside the Task and Finish Group report. My recommendation is that you adopt version 2 and that you see the leadership report when considering the Task and Finish Group report. But as I say, it's for the committee to discuss. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Hilary. We'll start off with a discussion on that particular point while it's fresh in our minds. Some of you may remember that we had issues when we did the Hitchin Town Hall special report about the leadership comments and the way they were presented at that time. And that's fed into this. Anybody wish to speak on the 3 alternatives there, and any preferences for anybody? No. My particular Kate.
Oh yeah, just briefly, and I think I'm probably about to say what you are, David. My preference is the hybrid, to maintain the option of being able to see the comments alongside the report. I think we all saw with the review that we painstakingly sat through a while ago, just how difficult that situation can be and how emotional that can become as well. So I think, yeah, my preference would be the hybrid option. I think it places the necessary gravitas on the differences with kind of the report and those leadership comments too.
Thanks, Kate. Claire.
Yes, you've reminded me of that difficult situation. But Chairman, in your view, which do you feel would actually avoid us getting into that again?
As Kate alluded to, I prefer the hybrid version, the third version there.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry I'm a bit slow because I'm sort of reading it and taking it in, and I don't want you to rush off and move on until everybody's had a chance to have a think about it.
Yeah.
Obviously, you and Kate have had a bit more time to think about it because you've had briefings on it.
We did discuss it at the briefing yesterday.
Yes.
I had a bit of time to think about
All
it.
the papers at the same time.
There's several reasons. Some it sometimes is not that helpful to have the leadership reports all the time. It helps a lot, but sometimes we don't particularly need them, depending on the type of the task and finish group, and it's more to inform cabinet. That's why I prefer the option. Personally, I'd probably nearly always take the option up to use them, but the option's there not to have and overload the report, as it were, on a task and finish group. While we're thinking, do you want to?
Yeah, can I come back? I think the difficult one we got is we were able to see the comments from the leadership team. However, that when there was no comeback, as I understand, as I remember it, from those that were presenting on that particular subject, the Hitchin Town Hall Limited. They didn't have a right of reply on the comments from the leadership, did they? No, but by having a report there, we would have the. You would see it further in advance. We didn't actually see it until the very last minute, if you remember. Yes, I do remember. Yep. And that I think that's kind of the issue, because there wasn't the opportunity then to have more discussion upon it. I think probably on balance then let's take in the hybrid then. Okay, Tony.
Thank you, Chairman. I think you've just been discussing what I was going to say. So actually, I was leaning towards the hybrid as well, remembering that meeting so well.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Well, I'm going to propose that we go with the hybrid version. Do I have a seconder for that anywhere?
To second that, David.
Thanks, Kate. So can we just take a vote on that particular version then? All those in, are you ready to take the vote, Anna?
Yes, ready, Chair.
Thank you, please. All those could signify in a traditional manner that we go for the hybrid version, which is the third one, as in 1.10 under 4.3.
So please use the green tick for yes, red cross for no, or blue raise hand for abstain.
Thank you. I think. Oh, Sam, you've got your hand up. Do you want to speak? That's clear vote. Thank you.
I was quietly abstaining.
It's an abstain. Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
Carried, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, going back on that report, just move back to the main agenda. Okay, do I have any other queries or questions on that part of the report, on the rest of the report from anybody? Tony.
Thank you, Chairman. It was just a thought that just occurred to me, reference the crime and disorder matters that's coming in January. I wondered whether or not how the police have managed and coped with COVID. Might be an interesting one for us to know what's been happening in North Hertfordshire across the board.
Yeah, that might be a good one. Particularly with the rules changing it yet again recently.
Exactly, Chairman.
Yeah, so I think yes, that might be a good topic for that. Thank you for that suggestion. If anybody else has got any other suggestions as well, Kate, you want to come in on that one?
Yeah, sorry, I know you said to email Hilary, but I find it so much quicker to do it this way. I would really value seeing what progress has been made on tackling domestic violence across our district. I know that Sally was first put in post, that was a key issue for her. And obviously with COVID, that has become a significant issue that I certainly have seen more than my fair share of in my ward. So it'd be good to get that. And just before we move off of this, because I might not get a chance to speak again, I just wanted to say well done, Hilary. I note with great pride and admiration that when you looked at other overview and scrutiny protocols of other districts and councils, that ours was really, really good, and that's all down to you. So thank you very much, and yeah, just wanted that noted.
Thank you.
Sue?
Hello, yes, thank you. I'd agree with Kate on the rise in domestic violence and would be pleased to see that on the agenda with the Police and Crime Commission. I'd also like to ask about antisocial behaviour and just to raise that we've got a homeless shelter being built in my ward, and I just wondered what the police's response to that is in terms of keeping an eye on antisocial behaviour that may be associated with homeless hostels.
Okay. Hostels. Yeah, I know there's been some issues with where we, as a district council, have put people in temporary accommodation as well in hotels and that. And I know there's been several issues with that. As
yes,
Mr. Fulstone would no doubt be able to tell us. So it'd be interesting to see the police's view of that side of it.
Yes, and we've got a hotel in Baldock, haven't we? So that would be good to hear about.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Tony, you've still got your hand up. Do you want to come back in?
No, apologies, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I've got no other hands up there. So we're looking at item 9. Recommendations are 2.1. The committee prioritises proposed topics for inclusion in the work programme attached to Appendix A, and where appropriate determines the high-level form and time of scrutiny input. Again, if you've got anything you wish to bring in from the forward plan or anything, please let myself or committee services know, and we'll get that in for an appropriate meeting. 2.2, that the committee, having considered the forward plan attached as Appendix B, suggests a list of items is considered at the 19th of January. And I think we're going to have quite a comprehensive meeting there with the police and the crime and disorder input on that one as well. 2.3, that the corporate peer challenge action plan extract as attached to Appendix C be considered, and that the committee consider and approve the revised task and finish group protocol as attached to Appendix C, which we have already covered. Any other additions or recommendations to that? No, thank you very much. If we could just vote on those en bloc, please.
Please vote using the green tick for yes, and red cross for no, blue raised hand for abstain. That's carried, Chair.
Thank you, Anna. Moving on to item 10, annual review of safeguarding and protecting children and adults, 2019 and 20. Councillor Judy Billing to present. Good evening, Judy.
Good evening, and my apologies for the fact that I was late. It wasn't that I'd forgotten or wasn't coming or anything like that. It was just that I couldn't get into the meeting, which made me panic and get very, very frustrated. But here I am, and I'm happy to present this report on behalf of the safeguarding team at the council, and start off by my thanks to Becky Coates and Helen Ray for the enormous amount of work that gets done almost under the radar. It's one of those areas of work which I've mentioned on a number of occasions I knew very little about until I found myself as executive member for community engagement and discovered that that was part of the portfolio. And I'd been a councillor for quite a long time without even knowing that we did this sort of work as a council. And so I've been mightily impressed to learn about it, to learn from my officer colleagues, and to discover that, of course, although we are not the primary authority for dealing with the outcomes of safeguarding adults or children, we do have a statutory responsibility to report such matters. And there have been occasions over the years where it would have been handy for me to know that, really, like times when I've been knocking doors on a political, in a political capacity, and found issues going on that I have worried me hugely. And I've never quite known what the best route is for dealing with them, and have tended to go to the police. In future, I wouldn't do that. Now, this report, beautifully written, beautifully presented, with a lot of very clear data in narrative and picture form through graphs and charts, tells you really what you need to know in one go this time, putting together safeguarding of children and safeguarding of adults, which we used to separate out. But also in another way, and this isn't an insult to the officers at all, it's a report that doesn't even belong in the world in which we now are, for the very reason that it finishes in March 2020. And most of us will remember that the world that we inhabited in March 2020 bears little relation to that which we now inhabit. And it will be very interesting indeed to see if and what changes there are over the next year, because there is a considerable worry that incidences of reporting the need for safeguarding have decreased as fewer people have been on other people's doorsteps, nosing around, if you like, but that there is probably more worry about what is going on behind doors than there is in any other year. So that's going to be interesting, lead to some very interesting analysis. This does get discussed every month with the Police and Crime Commissioner and my counterparts across the county in terms of increases in domestic abuse, antisocial behaviour, those things. But this report, as I say, takes us up to March of this year. I think is quite straightforward, tells us that there have been no need to make reports on the basis of prevent issues, which I think is significant, or of modern slavery issues either. And the types of safeguarding issues that we have reported are laid out in clear diagrammatic form in the graphs and charts in front of you. So Helen is here to answer difficult questions, and I'm here to answer any that are easier for me to manage. And I'm happy to proceed on that basis and take any questions that members of the Overview and Scrutiny Committee have at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judy. Helen, do you have any updates or additions to that report?
No, just to say that if anyone would, as Councillor Billing said, like to kind of ask some questions to interrogate further, then very happy to provide more information.
Thank you, Helen. And can I just say as well, echoing what Councillor Billing said, Judy said, an excellent report, really easy to, really well presented, really easy to understand, very comprehensive with the information in there. And as somebody who's actually, or should I want to say, taken advantage of actually used the safeguarding process on more than one occasion in the past, it does work well. It is a good procedure. And thank you for the work that your team do on that, and a very rapid response you give as well for at times. So thank you for that, Helen.
No, thank you.
Do I have any comments, questions? Sue?
Hello, yes, thank you. I just wanted to ask, because obviously these are unusual times, and reporting or identifying abuse within the community is really different at the moment, and some sorts of abuse may go unreported. So, for example, children would be reported perhaps by teachers or health visitors or the like, because we're in this situation and sometimes children aren't at school or they're not visiting as such any professionals, some sorts of child abuse may go unreported. And I just wondered whether there will be any analysis of that after the pandemic. So differences in figures and reporting. So, for example, there may be less, I would think, but although people are aware that there's an increase, it's not always, people aren't always able to pick it up or report it. So I wondered whether there'd be an analysis of differences in figures after the pandemic.
Can I start with that, Helen, and then hand over to you? for possibly a more technical reply, but I think that's just what I was talking about in my introductory remarks, that in a sense, we're getting possibly, we haven't done the analysis yet fully, but we're possibly getting fewer reports of safeguarding need at the moment for the reasons I said, that there is less happening on people's doorsteps, less happening that enables people to see what's going on in people's homes. And yes, there has been the school issue as well. But we know that the schools are, and the teaching staff are very, very conscious of the need, particularly at this time, to be looking out for such issues. And that's where our interface with the county council becomes very important. But we do look at these figures every month with the Police and Crime Commissioner meetings, not specifically on safeguarding, but certainly on antisocial behaviour and on abuse, domestic abuse. And some of it's becoming clear. But there is a real risk that some safeguarding issues will not be picked up when we're all hiding behind our front doors, living in closer proximity to our parents and grandparents than we might want to be. There are risks there, and there are some risks that we can't mitigate. Helen, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, we've actually got, we very lightly touch on this in the report in section 8.8. I mean, as Councillor Billings rightly stated, the report that you're looking at is about 1920 up until March, but I think we felt that because it is already December, we're actually almost through 2021, and 2020 has been so different that we would put a small analysis in just to show you what we know already about how the first 6 months of this year have gone. And it's exactly as everyone has already described. So our referrals for both children and adults for reasons other than domestic abuse have actually either remained static or dropped slightly. But what we know from talking to members of the public or other professionals is that there is more abuse going on in people's homes. People are living under far greater stress than they were pre-March. The referral rates don't necessarily mirror that, with the exception of domestic abuse. And I think that is for all the reasons we've talked about, that people are coming into less contact with professionals. So our domestic abuse referral rates have gone up amazingly, actually. So the number of adults that we've had referred for domestic abuse from April onwards has quadrupled compared to the same 6 months last year, and the number of children associated with those households has doubled compared to the first 6 months of last year. But referrals for other reasons haven't increased, and I think that purely is down to less officer face-to-face contact. One of the things we're trying to do, along with Herts County and the police and everybody else involved, is to, I suppose, urge the public to have their eyes and ears open, so that where people are having reduced contact with professionals, their neighbours and people in the areas where they're living might be able to kind of encourage referrals to come through. But I think when we do next year's report, we're going to see some really startling stuff that we've not seen between the previous years.
Thank you. Yes, I was sorry, just to follow up. Am I allowed to follow up?
Yes, certainly.
I just wanted about older people, and I would think there'd be an increase in neglect if people aren't being visited, you know, and things may go undetected or unnoticed, like medication, for example, and people living alone. It's possible that they may suffer from neglect, and that would be devastating in some cases. So I would be very interested to hear what the analysis is afterwards.
It's also possible, Sue, if I can just respond to that as well, that there'll be less neglect in our communities on the basis that people are much more alert to the needs of vulnerable people in terms of housing and being fed. So actually, the community spirit that we've seen, which has led to many streets setting up their own WhatsApp groups, their own Facebook groups, just to make sure that everyone's looked out for, may be one of the legacy bits of this pandemic that we'll want to hold on to.
Yes, I agree, Judy, completely, that there is a huge community spirit and people very willing to voluntarily give their time to help out. So yes, I completely agree.
Thank you for that. And yes, some quite scary information there from Helen about the first bit there about the increase. Certainly know that the schools have been very proactive with looking after children. My daughter's a teacher in Stevenage, and during the first part of the lockdown, when they were sending out homework and work from home stuff, if they weren't getting any responses, they were following those up until they got a response, even to the extent of actually knocking on the doors to find if they didn't get any response any other way. And I know some of these social landlords send out a regular email to their tenants asking if there's anything they can do. Are you okay? Anything you need to do? And that goes out about once a month or so. So I think it's actually it's probably actually raised people's social awareness a little bit because of this. I've got Claire, I think, next. Oh, you've gone.
Thank you, Chairman. I was just to say yes. Enjoyed reading the report. I don't say enjoyed, but it was a very good report to have read. The other thing I'd just like to mention is I actually attended the Child Protection Awareness training last month, and I thought that training was absolutely excellent. And I was just going to say to the other committee members, if you haven't been on it, do book yourself on, because it's really worthwhile going.
Yeah, thanks for that, Claire. And again, it's a reminder as well about the safeguarding training, because I noted there's still quite a lot of members haven't undertaken the safeguarding, although I know some have done it elsewhere, so there's always that side of it. Okay, I've got no other hands raised on this one, so thank you everybody for that one. And recommendations are that the committee receive and comment on the annual report of progress made against the council's fulfilment of the statutory duty to maintain an effective safeguarding function with regard to children. That the committee receive and comment on the annual report of progress made against the council's fulfilment of the statutory duty to maintain an effective safeguarding function with regard to adults. And 2.3, that the committee agrees that sufficient and robust processes are in place at NHDC for application and review of safeguarding processes, and that an annual review and presentations to this committee should continue. If we can take those recommendations on block, please.
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much for that one. And now moving on to item 11, information note for half-year update on comments, compliments and complaints. Councillor Martin Steers-Hanson. Martin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. If I can first introduce the report, and then as I indicated to you, I've also got a verbal update on social media. So if I do the report first of all, and the report, of course, covers the half year on the 3 Cs, covering the period from 1st of April to 30th of September. As you know, we capture feedback both from ourselves and from our contractors who provide the key services. Over this period, and clearly this is the period of the pandemic particularly, we've seen a reduction in all the 3 Cs compared to the same period last year. It's encouraging that the combined number of complaints has decreased significantly from 446 in 2019 in the same period to 233. That's almost a 50% reduction. 58% of those complaints relate to services delivered by our key contractors. It's worth noting that 53% of the compliments received relate to the same contractors, that's waste and the leisure centres. The percentage of 3 Cs resolved within 10 days has improved again, 79% compared to the same period last year, which it reflects an increase in monitoring and chasing to accompany automatic escalations. In terms of taking things further, there were 13 stage 2 complaints and 5 complaints escalated to the local government ombudsman, one of which was upheld relating to planning and development as noted in the main report. Now, Chris Jeffrey is here to give the technical backup to that, but if it's open now for questions, Chair.
Thank you, Martin. Questions, comments from anybody, please? I do note as well, by the way, that some of the areas that we do normally see a fair volume from, because they weren't actually operating, such as the leisure service. Although I do notice that we, in that period when they were actually shut, we did get some comments, but there we go. Do I have any more comments or anything on that one? Just bear with me a moment, because I seem to have lost my ModGov completely now. No, it's gone.
Would you like me to email you the report pack?
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go in on the public website, because I know I can get in from that. Won't be a moment, everybody. Apologies for this. Right, I'm back. Let's get to the right page. Okay.
Chair, would you like me to do a verbal update then on social media?
Yes, please.
As I explained to you before the meeting started, Sarah Kingsley has provided this update. Normally she'd be with us, but of course she's unwell at the moment. So these are her notes, and I will pass them to Hilary I'll pass them to committee services for the minutes. From April to September this year, our Facebook fans, interesting concept, but I think that's what we call them, have increased by 1,800, bringing our total number of fans to 4.6 thousand. Our Twitter followers have increased by 701, bringing our total followers to 11,000. In total, our Facebook posts have reached 1.6 million people from April through to September. Engagement on Twitter has increased this year. Our most popular tweet, which gained the most likes and retweets, was in May about food and garden waste collections resuming, not surprising probably. The post had 50 likes and 27 retweets. On both Twitter and Facebook, the most popular inbound message topics, all Facebook comments, Twitter mentions and direct messages, were coronavirus and waste. This year we have shared less posts on Twitter and Facebook compared to the same period in 2019, but our engagement is higher, suggesting the quality of our posts is better. Instagram is becoming more popular. At the start of April 2019, we only had 788 followers, whereas by the end of September 2020, we had 1,499,000. We are posting regular content on our Instagram feed and utilizing the stories feature to share key information. Our most popular post on Instagram, with the highest number of likes, was an image of the Broadway Gardens fountain with blue water to show support for the NHS, care workers and key supports, with 110 likes. So there, Chair, that's the verbal update. And I have to say, I was very socially distanced at my hairdresser today, and she told me anecdotally, she lives in Nebworth, that she's been very grateful for updates on our social media that have kept her in touch and kept her business going. And she also thanked the finance part of the council for the fact that she was able to receive a discretionary loan. So our media, social media and other media is having a real effect.
Thank you for that update. That's helpful as well. And I've had quite a few comments about how easy it was to find the business information and the grants information as well. One other thing, while I think about it, Martin, is one. It's not exactly 3 C's, but it is the feedback and the engagement side of it. Is the amount of people watching our meetings now on YouTube, which might be worth actually, when we do the things about Facebook engagements, etc. It might be worth actually looking at how many people watch the meetings on YouTube and that in various meetings, because I do look at it occasionally, and I do notice that we get an awful lot more people logging into council and planning meetings and all the other meetings now than we ever did attending in public. So it may be a useful thing to monitor.
I'm sure officers would be happy to take that one up. So yes, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Sam.
Thanks, Chair. Just following on that point, actually, I don't know the procedure to this, but perhaps as this committee, we could have a think about, or even a motion to vote on, that going forward, that all meetings of the council will be streamed live on YouTube, regardless of the situation with the pandemic, for forevermore in future.
Yeah, I think that's quite a good idea. Yeah.
Chair, it's Hilary. Can I just I do know that they're looking into installing cameras, etc., into the council chamber, so I'm sure that's on the agenda, if not already sorted out.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had some interaction with Vic and others in IT, as well as Martin and Paul both had as well, about what will happen with the council chamber in future, and that's certainly one of the things, is to have a lot more remote interaction, as it is. I think it's probably the best way of summarising that, isn't it, Martin?
Absolutely, Chair. Yeah, there's something we're all hoping to see. When we get back to normal, it's obviously going to be a very different normal, and we wait and see. But obviously, making sure that we're able to share with our residents what's going on is a high priority.
Thank you, Claire.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, probably not surprising that as people have been at home and in lockdown, people have been relying more on finding information, and a lot more Facebook groups, as you say, and Twitter and everything else. So it's not only, I think, have we been be able to reap the benefit of that, but I think people have had much more time at home to actually start to go out and see what's out there in the wider world. However, one thing I'm always wary about, there are a lot of people that don't do social media and don't have the way, so we just need to be careful that we don't think, we've told everybody through the normal channels. There are those people that can't see it. And then this brings me back to something, I mean, when you're talking about how many people are watching YouTube, yes, I mean, I've been watching the sessions on the planning inspectors sessions this week and the week before. And again, it's interesting on that to see how many people are actually watching sessions live and how many people are actually going to watch the YouTubes that we've got in our library. But, and here's the big but, I thought we were going to have, and I'm glad Councillor Billing is here, because we were going to have a task and finish group on community engagement. And that is still sort of kicking around, and I'm not sure that we've actually yet seen the brief for that. But I would hope that all these sort of things would be as part of, which is why I was quite keen when we actually talked about communication and that we actually made the task and finishing group to look at the whole, a much broader scope of community engagement across the council, rather than just having it as part of the Hitchin Town Hall Limited project.
Yeah, that's something we are aiming to do with that task and finish group. The first one to get out of the way, of course, is just going backwards slightly on the agenda, is the waste one, which we have now got, we're scheduling for February. So we'll be doing that task and finish group in February and then moving straight on to the next one.
Actually, sorry, apologies. Actually, I think was the communication on that one? Actually, it might have come out of the waste as well. Actually, but you're right. Actually, it's from waste.
That's where it came from. Yeah,
it came from waste. Yes, but we did as a committee broaden it.
Yes,
be much wider. But again, I think we're collecting lots of information, but there's a lot. I think there's that task and finish group that needs to look at it.
Yeah.
In the new year.
In the new year.
Can I, sorry, it's Hilary, can I just make a comment just to, I'm not saying we shouldn't do the task and finish groups, and we did have this discussion in the chair's briefing. It's just to be cautious about the fact that the waste team are still, I think, firefighting, and I'm sure Councillor Dennis Harburg will broaden out on that later, and it's going to be extraordinarily difficult to get all of the input we need in February, but we'll do our best to get things started.
Thank you, Hilary. Okay, I have no other hands up on that one at the moment. Claire, your hands up, is it just not cleared? Thank you. Thank you for everybody on that one. And that is, the recommendation is to note the update. We did have that little bit about looking at as an additional possible recommendation of looking at the YouTube figures as a addition to the other stuff. So thank you for that, everybody. Moving on to item 12, priorities for the district, key projects, half-year monitoring. Councillor Steers Hanscom, Rachel Cooper, Martin.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Again, this report and indeed the one that follows are over a period when very much affected by COVID. And nevertheless, in looking at the key projects, first of all, there has been progress made. Well, of course, there are one or two updates, and Rachel will give more after I've just said a few words. We are in the last week of the local plan examinations. We then await the inspector's deliberations, although we do know that there will be at least one or two further sessions in the new year related to particular items. Now, Rachel will take you through the details, and obviously I'm very happy to join her in answering questions as we go through. Thank you, Chair.
Martin. Rachel.
Okay, thank you for that. Just briefly on this report, really, there's just a couple of things I was going to draw you attention to. So page 72 shows the number of status of the projects. So there were 14 projects in total being reported on, 9 shown as green, 3 are amber, 1's completed and 1's still pending, which is the Churchgate project. And the full list of projects is attached as Appendix A. So the only 2 I was really going to mention was the local plan, which has already been mentioned, around the virtual hearings dates which have commenced and take place over the 3 consecutive weeks. And the website, as usual, is up to date with the latest position. And then finally, just 8.5 on page 72, the crematorium, again, showing as amber status. We've been waiting for the appeal, the hearing to be taken place. We've got the date now, but just to draw your attention to the fact that this is now changed from a hearing to an inquiry, which is going to be held on the 22nd of Feb. And we have now appointed a barrister, and the statement of common ground is being prepared for that. So that was really all I was going to mention on that one, and then just open up to questions.
Thank you, Rachel. I think the other thing that's worth commenting on is the Brexit's in there, and the Brexit Project Board does meet regularly on that one and does keep getting updated on that one, because as myself and Martin are both on that one, so, and some of the others are as well here. So that is something that does get followed up very regularly.
Yeah, and that's also a corporate risk as well, so that's looked at.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments on that one? Claire.
Yeah, again, one of the ones that that seems to have been around for an awful long time, and that's the long-term museum storage solution, because that, as I always remember, was part of when we did the consolidation of the museums into the one brilliant new North Herts Museum. But also I always thought, sort of tagged as part of that project, was to also sort out museum storage. So I'm slightly surprised to see it as green, because for me, this has been a project that we've had around for a long, long time?
I think the status represents the fact that the project's taken off in this year with the milestones in this year. So at the moment, we have only the November 2020 milestone for the costed proposals, with the further milestones to follow, which is why it's still status green at the moment. I'm sure the service director commercial would probably be able to give a more detailed answer to that question. He's here.
Thank you.
Steve.
Yeah, the way I see it is, as Rachel stated, it is green, and the reason is we requested for the capital money for that project, and therefore that project is live as of when we got the money approved. I appreciate, Claire, that this was part of the original piece of work in terms of resolving storage generally. However, I see it, that was a project. This is a separate project which we only got approval for funding. I think it was last financial year, and we're on target within the programme of work that we've set out. But I do take on your point that it was something which the council was aiming to deliver as part of the main project.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, I've got no other comments or questions on this particular one. So the recommendation is that the delivery against the key projects for 2020-2021 be noted and commented on by the Overview and Scrutiny Committee, which we have done. Can I ask you to vote on that recommendation, please? Thank you, everybody. That's quite clearly carried. Moving on to item 13, second quarterly performance against PIs, which is on page 89 of your agenda pack. Martin, again, please.
I think Rachel will take you through particular items. Happy to be involved in answering questions.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. So as we said, this is the second quarterly monitoring report with data as at the end of September 2020. Page 89 shows the status summary of the report. As expected, COVID-19 continues to impact on performance. So we're reporting 6 red indicators again this quarter. Page 90, the new indicator, line 1, electricity and gas energy consumption, continues to remain green at Q2, although it has to be noted this is mainly due to the DCO only being partially used during the period. Page 90, line 2, the percentage of raised sales invoices. This is to do with collection rates. This is a red indicator. Again, recovery processes were relaxed in order to support customers during the COVID-19 shutdowns. But just to give a verbal update on this one, collection rates do continue to increase, and it's currently showing as 77.46% as at October. And the leadership team and corporate debt management group continue to monitor the debt closely. Moving on to page 91, again, this is collection rates and NDR. Same story really, collection rates relaxed. Businesses were given longer to pay, so their instalments were deferred. However, there are indications that some businesses continue to struggle with this, and this will have an ongoing negative effect on collection rates. Just as an update, the November collection rate is up to 70.33%. Page 93 and 94, I just wanted to mention the rate of homelessness prevention and relief are much improved on this time last year, reflecting the hard work of officers in supporting the government's Everyone In initiative. However, this has had an impact on the number of households we've put into temporary accommodation, as can be seen on page 95 of the report. Also on page 95, the number of environmental health programmed inspections completed. You can see again, it's a red indicator. The formal food inspections have now resumed, albeit at a much reduced level due to businesses being shut down. The team continue to work with county-wide partners on COVID work, but we are unlikely to achieve the target by year end. Page 98, the number of visits to leisure facilities, again, red indicator. August and September figures below those expected in the recovery plan, although the figure was exceeded in October. However, following the second lockdown, officers are working with SLL to assess the implications for the recovery plan. And again, in the food waste, page 99, line 15 and 16, the waste figures, again, red indicators, not hitting the targets due to increased levels of waste during the lockdown. And it is again thought that these figures are unlikely to recover by the end of the year. With that in mind, just to give the committee an update that in light of the impact of COVID-19 and the fact that many of these indicators are unlikely to recover before year end, I'm planning to take a report to Cabinet in January, which would propose changes to the targets in year in order to reflect the current position. So this is not something we would normally do. However, the alternative is that the PIs remain at red status and don't actually reflect the actual progress being made. So making a realistic change mid-year would allow this committee to scrutinise against targets which should be able to be achieved. For example, the number of visits to leisure centres would be based on the agreed recovery plan, and the number of environmental health inspections could be reflective of what could be achieved between now and the end of March based on current resources. So I'm proposing the report would be brought to this committee first in January to give you the opportunity to comment on the proposals and make recommendations to Cabinet. And perhaps I can just ask the committee member and scrutiny manager to just confirm the protocol required to ensure that this can go to Cabinet in January.
Hello, Chair, if I may.
Yeah, carry on, Laurie.
Okay, so the overview and scrutiny can make a recommendation as to whether they support things in principle or make specific recommendations to Cabinet, and Rachel can provide a report to Cabinet, which is similar to what she's just verbally informed you. So you are able to make recommendations yourself if you wish.
Yeah, thank you for that, Hilary. Yeah, I was actually writing something down as we're talking there, and I think I would add into this report a couple of extra recommendations in that one, as the Cabinet considers reviewing the PIs for environmental health in line with the time to review those figures to allow for the time that we were in lockdown and no visits were possible, and recommend a recommendation that the usage figures for the leisure centres is revised in line with the revised recovery programme, bearing in mind that they've just had another month of loss of use as a leisure centre, although as long as we stay in tiers 1 or 2, we should be okay and be able to keep the leisure centre open from now on. So I think we'll add those recommendations into this report, if that's okay with everybody. Do I have any more comments or questions on the PIs? Claire.
Sorry if you knew I would, wouldn't you? Because I mean, performance indicators been in my heart, I think, for the long time since I was doing scrutiny when I was first a councillor many years ago. I think there is a pandemic going on, and we know it's had a dramatic effect around, and of course all our figures are going to have all the targets and all that we had, and all the improvement that we were trying to see year on and achieving targets. And I'm just not got my head around whether this is actually going to be a meaningful exercise just to try and change the targets to a different sort of target, because I'm not very good at second guessing, We talk about Stevenage Leisure and the recovery plan, but I declare an interest. I'm a member, but I've suspended my membership for the moment because I'm not wanting to go back to a leisure centre until I've had my vaccine. So, and how we know that these plans, whatever else, as we go forward, how quickly everything is going to pick up again. The same with waste and recycling. We can see what the effect is because we can measure it. But trying to reset targets, I kind of would rather leave the targets as they are and then see how we start to recover back against them rather than trying to put in new. I think it's going to be a great it's an exercise to go and do. But I think at the end of the day, we probably would all want to say we want to be able to get back to where we were in terms of performance, and that's what we should be measuring ourselves against, is how quickly we are going to get there. Rather than changing the targets at this stage. I just don't see that as an exercise that's actually going to help me going forward.
Well, on the leisure one in particular, I think we allocated through Cabinet and Council extra money to Stevenage Leisure as a sort of help them out type thing, and that was dependent upon them meeting their revised recovery programme. The amount of funding they got and when. So I think it would be quite useful to actually add that one in as a formal monitoring way of doing that, and a visible, open way of monitoring that before recovery against.
What I'm saying, I suppose, what I'm trying to say is what I don't want to lose when I'm looking at performance and monitoring is where we were and where we would like to get back to. So if we start changing all the targets, we might lose that as to be able to look back at.
Well, we're only looking at the two at the moment, which are ones that have been very specifically affected by the COVID situation.
Sorry, if I could just jump in. I think the intention is to make the scrutiny more meaningful by actually adjusting the targets, because at the moment what will happen is it will be constantly read and it won't reflect the work that's been done to get those targets up. So I think if we reset the targets for those two in particular, one, it will give the scrutiny against the recovery plan to ensure that they're sticking to the recovery plan they're coming up with, but two, it will also be more reflective of what is actually being achieved.
I've got no one else looking to comment on that, so the recommendations I'm going to put to committee are one, that we note the report, and also the recommendation that Cabinet reviews the performance indicators for environmental health and the leisure services in line with, and the leisure services particularly in line with the recovery programme. Could we go to the vote on that, please?
That's carried, Chair.
Thank you very much, Anna. Okay, now moving on again to.
Sorry, Chair, could I just raise one more thing?
Yeah.
The supplementary report that was added to the reports pack concerning the performance management audit.
Yeah.
So basically just drawing your attention to the audit, particularly recommendation number 2, which relates to overview and scrutiny, and it's just for information and your comment.
Right, thank you. Let me just pull that one back again. Okay, has everybody got that report and seen it in the supplementary pack? I'm just trying to get to the actual recommendations themselves and find them again.
Chair, you also have Councillor Elizabeth Dennis-Harbook here to talk about that as well.
Yeah, Elizabeth, do you want to come in on that one?
I can do, Chair, if you like, if the committee's got any questions.
The committee, just to remind people, can the committee ask Councillor Dennis Harburg here to talk about the waste routes?
Anyone? Sam.
Thanks, Chair. Well, it's a question I've asked and you've asked and we've all asked many times. This committee put a request in for, this is well over a year ago now, I think 2 years, maybe more, for councillors in each ward to be able to inspect the waste routes in their wards. And, well, I think I might start sending a birthday card to that request from this committee.
Right, okay. We've got that request, and I think there's been some issues initially with officers in Abasa wanting to understand a little bit more about what the purpose of the committee's request for this information was. Some of that concern is partially around this being a commercial operation, and Abasa wanting to make sure that at a very critical time, we all know the issues that they had when they took over the contract from Veolia. They were sort of being a little bit protective around that information. What I have got available and what Hilary is able to circulate to members of the committee is a spreadsheet that's been pulled from the waste system, which shows the rounds and the streets that are on each of those rounds, and then sort of in a third column has set out the sort of names of the towns. I do not have the maps, and the reason for that is actually it's a bit more complicated apparently than just pulling it off and printing it out. Originally I had said, why don't we just print these out, put them in the members' room for people to view. We weren't able to do that. There is a ticket raised with IT, and it's on Vic's very, very long to-do list to create an online portal which would layer the route data for members to then be able to see. But again, I think my query might be, perhaps somewhat mischievously, is it Scrutiny's role to look at the day-to-day operational basis and business of a subcontractor, and is this particular committee qualified to tell a refuse collection company that it's going about its route optimization and choosing where it sends its wagons incorrectly?
I'm going to jump in on the back of that, Chair. The reason the committee asked, I mean, it's well minuted, and I know Councillor Dennis Harburg was in those meetings, so she knows this as well as everybody else. The reason was that it was felt amongst the committee in the distant past, when the problems with the contractor first started, that the councillors in their various wards probably knew their wards pretty well. And it would be useful, at the very least, for each councillor to be able to be aware when each collection was due on the individual ward. So when somebody who you represent gets in touch with you, you'd be able to say, well, actually, you're not due till tomorrow or whatever.
Okay, so bearing in mind then, sorry, Chair, if I may, bearing in mind where we are now with the contract, and that in terms of operational performance, it's in roughly the same place as it was. We can't know exactly because we're not comparing like for like, but it's roughly where it was when it was under Veolia. Is there benefit in getting officers to undertake what is going to be a resource and cost intensive piece of work to produce this information when members can actually go on the waste website, enter the relevant postcode and find out when a resident's collection day is?
I think the point here was that if somewhere, I mean, there were places that were being missed off quite often, certainly in Highbury, I know there was the little block of housing behind Waitrose was constantly being missed off. So actually that information that we have as councillors, local knowledge, is irreplaceable. Additionally, it's something the committee has requested repeatedly, and I think to be
I don't deny, and I will say that I'm equally dissatisfied that the maps weren't provided, Sam, but we also, as you know, have some very good contract officers who are able to pick up and are logging those hotspots. The performance management regime is now fully operational, and if Urbasa repeatedly misses collections, which I can see a number of faces who do contact me regularly about these hotspots, there is a financial penalty in place.
I will leave it to the committee chair whether you still want these maps obtaining, but what I will say is it will not be quick because officers are still trying to make sure that we've got business as usual, recovering from COVID, and we have some Brexit risks on the horizon that we'd like to manage as well. And obviously IT are clearly tied up at the moment with some quite complex bits and pieces, so this is going to be low down their work programs. And it's also going to be costly to produce something that I think potentially actually isn't relevant for the place that we're in now, but might have been helpful, 2 years ago when this committee originally made this request.
Chair, just to follow on from that, 2 years is quite a lot of time. To say it's going to be costly and take a long time is quite surprising to hear when we've been asking for this for over 2 years. However, something Councillor Dennis Harbour just said, there's a spreadsheet with the road names and the collection routes on that would actually be really useful for us all to see, because essentially if you've got a list of road names and a list of collection dates and those routes, well, essentially we don't need then the maps. If we can get a list of names and the numbers of the houses, say it was Wymondley Road 100 to number 2 and then a different day is a different route. If we can get that data, well, that's as good as a map, essentially, because we all know those roads and where they are. So then that would supplant a map. I don't understand why it'd be a great costly exercise to turn that spreadsheet into a map.
Just to be clear, Councillor Collins, that the house numbers aren't on there. It is the code for the route, the name of the street, and then the town that it is in. The difficulty that we've got, of course, is that this isn't our operational data. It's Abasa's operational data. So it has to be pulled through from them.
I understand that. I understand that completely. It's just whether you've got a long road. There's quite a few in Highbury Ward, for example. If there's a road that's got a split route on, which some of them do, I'm just interested to know, because if we've got that list of routes, that's absolutely fine. It's just how those split routes might be mentioned on the list. But it's worth looking at that list, so maybe it won't be a problem. So perhaps that list would be a good thing to circulate, and that might answer all of the problems.
The bit that Elizabeth mentioned, Sam, about putting in the postcode, it takes the full postcode when you do it. So if you use that bit of the Waste website, you put the full postcode in. If it's a split road, it works on the splits quite well within one or two houses anyway. It's something I use quite a lot when for people who might have had the bin missed, and it does work from one side of the road to the other, definitely, where there is a couple of roads in Letchworth and one side gets collected one route and the other side gets collected a different route on some of the major roads, and it does work very well, Sam, if you use that one. Claire.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so I think Councillor Collins is absolutely right. This was something that was requested, and I don't think I've really heard a particular reason as to why this is, apart from it being costly and complicated. But I'd like to give Councillor Dennis Harbour just one of the reasons I think councillors wanted to see it, because when the new contracts came over, the routes did change. And for example, in one of the villages, and if you've ever tried to go down Whitwell, it's a high street full of cars, and that's it's not easy to navigate at the best of times. But at sort of I think it's about 8:15, 8:30 in the morning, when under the new route for refuse collections, the bin lorry goes down. It goes down and it just keeps stopping all the way down. And the residents tell me, if only it would go back to the old route time when it used to be later in the day, because they all know that they cannot get out of the village between about 8:15 and 9 o'clock. And as one of them says, well, if I've got out the house too late, I then have to turn around, go home, and I can have a cup of coffee and another piece of toast before I attempt it again. Because otherwise, she says, I'm just going to sit behind that lorry, the Ubasa track, until it's gone right the way down the high street. And I think that's why we were asking to see this information, because if there were some conflicts of when the en routes, we could actually flag them up and have said, could you go back to the old time scales, or could you change the route so that you go to Whitwell after you've done all these other bits? And there were parts of the routes that they actually missed out, particularly in the village areas. So there was lots of odd locations, which they have now picked up. And I mean, we did have that bad time, but it's the bigger picture. It's like, as I said, it's the example of Whitwell High Street. Please avoid it in the early morning rush hour when everybody's cutting through, because the village don't like it.
Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. I can take that away. I can actually take that away. That's really helpful. So if any other members, either here or just in general, have issues like that specifically in their wards, it would be really beneficial if I was made aware of that, so I can discuss that with officers and then we can raise that as a concern with Abasa and see if maybe it wants to feed it in. But if I don't know, I can't help.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And actually, if you, some members may remember, I raised the thing about the schools routes and bin lorries when schools are coming in and out when the schools are, because I live opposite a school and I see the Cosic courts, and that has actually been altered since then. And they now do come much later in the day, but they actually managed to avoid the school times, and it's made a huge difference. So if you do bring it to people's attention, it does get action. So thank you for that. Kate.
I do. I realise we're finishing this topic off, but I do want to speak on it, if I may. I was one who was very frustrated at the lack of ability or I felt adequate reason as to why we didn't have these route maps, which felt like a really simple thing to be able to do. But unlike my colleagues, I am convinced by the answer that it is both costly and complicated, neither of which I want to see us taking, particularly not at this stage. And I think that the fact that we've been asking for it for 2 years is indicative of how costly and complicated it is. I don't have the lack of trust in kind of officers' ability or desire and motivation to do this for us. It must be very difficult because we always bloody ask for it, and I can't imagine anybody wanting to come to work to get faced with that and have to say, I'm sorry, I've not done it again. So there must be a reason for it. I remember very clearly the reason that we asked for it in the very beginning was because there was a distinct lack of knowledge and early on in that contract and those commercial arrangements, there was also quite poor relationships between supplier and customer, which would be us. And there were several routes that were just ridiculous, and we all knew that as local councillors, and so that's why route maps at that point would have been incredibly useful. As the 2 years have passed, it's really clear that we've resolved a lot of those issues, and what we've now got standing in front of us are a few one-off issues of very specific things like the timing of the route in Whitwell, and they can be raised on a very specific basis. It's really obvious we can find out the days of the routes. That was never actually why we asked for it in the first place. It was because we wanted to input our own local knowledge into the operational processes that were happening within an organisation that didn't appear to have that local knowledge, and so we wanted to collaborate and share that. That's now pointless, and I think it's time that we dropped the route maps and we looked for a better way forward. Sam, I see that you're shaking your head. I do wish that we didn't have to spend this time talking about it at every meeting when it's quite clear that we're not going to get it and it wouldn't be valuable. Okay,
Sam, last comment on this, if you can keep it brief.
Yeah, I disagree with Kate that it wouldn't be useful. I think as councillors, we have a responsibility, particularly as overview and scrutiny councillors as well, a responsibility to our residents to be able to be looking into the things we need to be looking into. And I don't really think it's right for people to be saying, oh, no, you don't need that. When we've asked for it as a committee repeatedly to say, yes, we do need it, it's not really an option to be told that we don't need it repeatedly. I don't think that's acceptable. You know, when ONS makes a formal request for something over and over again, that's not on to not be told we can't have that. That is not within the bounds of any officer or any executive member. And I'm not blaming anyone in particular, but the suggestion and Councillor Dennis Harburg has put forward, and I think is a good one, if that list, that Excel spreadsheet can be put forward, I think that would solve a lot of the issues. So I think we do need that. And I think all councillors need that to look at to see if there are any issues.
Okay, thanks.
And if it does come up, then we'll be able to resolve it in future.
I think what's being said is it's not that you can't have it, is that the cost and the time to take it and the advantage is a lot of resource, a lot of time, a lot of money. And does it really make that much? Is it that really helpful for that amount of cost? Let's get the spreadsheet circulated, please, Elizabeth, and then we can take it from there. And I think, Sam, with the improved thing on looking at the postcodes and everything else, I think the problem may well have gone away by now. But so we'll park that one there. The last little bit I want to come back to now, I've got this SIS report up, is that it is about the amount of challenge that overview and scrutiny gives to performance of the council. And what it's saying here really is that recommendation of the thing is that you get the report a month in advance and nobody ever brings any queries up. Please, if you've got anything, bring it in advance. Make sure you ask those challenges. Make sure you challenge that performance data so we can get the right people in at the overview and scrutiny committee meetings and look at that in detail where it is. Rather than bring it up on the night, try and bring it up in advance. You've all got the reports a month in advance at least now. So anything on those PIs, please try and bring those up in advance. Let me know, let committee services know, and we'll get the proper answers rather than try and deal with it on the fly. That's just a reminder from that report. Thank you on that one. Okay, we're going to move on now to the next item, which is members' questions, and we don't have any. And what I'm now going to do is move into the part 2 report, rather than go straight into item 14. Rather than go straight into the commercial update part 1 report, there are some parts in there that may raise questions that should really be considered into part 2. So what I'm now going to do is go to item 16, which is exclusion of the press and public, and to consider passing the following resolution. That under section 100A of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public will be excluded from the meeting on the grounds the following report will involve the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of part 1 of schedule 12A of the said act, brackets as amended, close brackets. All those in favour of moving that recommendation, please, and going that recommendation to move to part 2. Thank you, everybody.
Carried, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, can we take a pause just for a moment while we move into part 2?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'll now open the part 2 room. Members could accept their invitation. And just to inform anybody who's still in this room with me, I'm now going to put up a holding screen for the benefit of the YouTube stream, and we will begin once part 2 discussions have finished.
Thank you, William. Can you please send Chris Robson through, and Councillor Oliver can go as a deputy executive member.
I can do that now as well.
Thank you.
Can I get an invite through as well?
Sorry, Keith, I couldn't see you on my screen. Yes, of course. Can Keith go as well, please?
Thank you.
Right, that should be everybody. Hilary, you're good to go now as well. Councillor Levitt.
Yeah.
Sorry, hang on a minute. There's just some discussion in the officers' chat about whether or not you need to rejoin the breakout room.
Oh, it looks like they're all coming back here. So.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we're coming back.
Coming back.
I will close the room.
I will just explain in a moment when everyone's back, Councillor Levitt, so that the public understand why we couldn't, what we did and the problems we had getting you back in.
Can I just say, sorry, I meant to say in the last section, but Stephen, really appreciate the detail in that report this time round. I know that you and I have batted that one back and forth a few times, but I thought that was really useful, and I'm so happy to see the measurables in there. So thank you very much for making me very happy.
Not a problem.
Christmas come early then, Kate.
William, do you want to take the card down? Thank you very much. And Anna, I think you'll need to just do a quick roll call, and then I'll just explain what happened in the part 2 meeting.
I'll just undertake the roll call quickly. Councillor Levitt.
Yeah.
Councillor Aspinwall.
Yeah.
Councillor Bryant.
Here.
Councillor Collins.
Hello.
Councillor Derbyshire.
Yeah.
Councillor Hunter.
Present.
Councillor McNally.
I'm here.
Councillor Nash.
Here.
Councillor Nguala.
Here.
Councillor Rogero Chaka.
Present.
Councillor Strong.
Present.
Councillor Hoskins.
Yeah, here.
Councillor Oliver.
Here.
Councillor Steers Hanscom.
Here.
Councillor Ian Albert.
Yep.
And officers Steve Crowley.
Here.
Chloe Gray.
Here.
Hilary Deneen.
Yeah.
And William Edwards.
Present.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's everybody.
Thank you. Hilary, do you want to do your little bit?
Yeah, all I was going to say, and this is in lieu of anything that Councillor Aspinall would like to say, is just to clarify that all that the committee did in part 2 was to note the report. No decisions were taken as such, and we had a technical problem recalling Councillor Levitt after he'd left following a declaration of interest, but as the vote was only to note the report with no decisions, the committee felt that it was fine to just note it without you, Councillor. I hope that was all right.
Happy with that. That's fine from what I mean. Okay. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, Hilary, for that. If we can move on with the general part of the meeting, welcome back, everybody. We're now going backwards slightly on the agenda to agenda item 15, the update of the Commercial Director's Progress and Future Work Programme. Councillor Hoskins to present. Keith, if you go ahead, please.
Okay, I thought I'd done. Right, you have it before you, and we've discussed under part 2 quite a lot of the issues. I'm happy for the team to take any questions you've got on part 1. But if not, I hope you will note the report.
Thank you, Keith. Any officers or anybody got anything to add to that one? No. Any? Councillor Hunt, Tony.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll keep it brief, seeing it's late. Just a couple of quick questions. The community lottery. I remember about, it must be nearly 2.5 years ago when this was looked at. An officer put a report in front of me to say that it would never make money. I noticed that this one says exactly the opposite. So I wanted assurance that we've done our homework. Secondly, obviously, we do seem to be employing an awful lot of external consultants at the moment. I wanted to check with Mr. Kelly that he was still coping within budget. And lastly, on property assets, that's quite a list that we've got there. I just wondered whether the actual council's property list must be getting quite small now. wanted some assurance from Mr. Cooper that we haven't sold all the silver. That's it, Chairman.
Thank you. Sue, we'll take the questions together.
Yes, I just wanted to concur with Councillor Hunter that we do seem to employ consultants and probably at huge cost to the council. And I wondered whether we have ever thought about creating think tanks, because for something like the Letchworth Town Centre, the Garden City shopping centre, I think we need to be really imaginative and think outside of the box. And perhaps a think tank might be a more economical way of going forward and raising ideas.
Yeah, thank you, Sue, for that one. A view I hold myself as, I think when in my commercial world, when you employ a consultant, the first question you get from them is, what do you want the answer to be? So I think think tanks actually work a lot better in some ways, and a little bit more free thinking, as you say, think outside the box a little bit more. So I think that's a very good idea. And before we move to the officers, I've got Kate as well wants to come in. I just want to add something to the community lottery thing. There's a couple of questions I have on there. It says, is set to reach 0.5% of North Hertfordshire's player population in its first year. Not the population of North Herts, but 0.5% of the player population. So what is the player population in numbers? Is it like the 130,000 North Herts population, or is it less than that? What is a player population? And the second part of it is, it's gonna generate achieving £10,000 for good causes in the local area. And the rest of the support suggests it's not going to actually make money in the first year. It's going to be a revenue negative thing by the look of it. If it's going to generate £10,000, what's it going to cost to generate that 10 grand? So if it's going to cost 10 grand to generate 10 grand, wouldn't you be better off just putting the 20 grand into the community pot in the first place? That's my questions. Kate.
I'll come in afterwards. Mine's not a question, it's a comment.
Okay, thanks. Steve.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So, community lottery, yes, a lot of work has been done on that. I think, in summary, the reason why it now should make money is because we will use a company to assist us running it. When it was originally looked at, it was looked at with an officer to run it internally. So therefore there was additional cost then. I don't have the figures, but I don't know if Chloe has a figure for the player population, but that is purely based on obviously those who are of the correct age to partake in the lottery. Chloe, do you have the exact figures there out of interest?
Not in front of me, but I'm happy to share them to the committee members if that's something that you would like, Chair.
Yeah, please. It would be interesting because it sort of begs the question of what the ticket costs and that are going to be as well.
So there's a report going to Cabinet, and it's all in the report to Cabinet. I was trying to get back into the Cabinet to see if the Cabinet reports are live here, but my PC is running slow, unfortunately. But it does set out within the Cabinet report. There's a sheet table on there which shows the income in each year and the costs in each year. In the first year, off the top of my head, it costs council, as you say, I think it's approximately £3,000 to £4,000 in the first year. But if we get the correct growth, it then increases up so that by, I think, year 5, we're generating over £10,000 of income directly to the council, and is over 70,000 or close to that amount off the top of my head, which is being generated to good causes. So therefore, it's all about the growth of that, hence why it won't start from day one. We will get all of those. I think our target is 2.5% of the playing population to be taking part. And that is based on the research that we've done with other councils who've already got a lottery in place and have been very successful in achieving those figures. So that's why we are confident of this. The other way I look at it is if and it's going to cabinet, so it's a cabinet to decide if they wish to authorize or approve this. If it does get an authorization and it goes ahead, if we find that after say 3 or 4 years that it isn't generating the income that we originally were aiming to achieve, we can then decide if we wish to stop doing the lottery. But the facts are, the business case shows, based on other examples, that it is viable.
Okay,
So
thanks, Stephen.
I think that gives the information on the lottery. External consultants, predominantly the external consultants is because we have got a vacancy within our team and we're having to use an external consultant. Although I would say that the individual has been very, very effective in the work they've done, and they've achieved lots of work in terms of completion of projects and taken many reports to cabinet, which if we didn't have that individual, we would not have achieved the work that we've done so far this year, and also I think last year. Consultants, I think it's using the right consultants at the right time. Otherwise, we could be employing a bigger team within the overall service area, which isn't required when we don't always require those specialist skills. So I think that's why we use consultants as and when required to ensure that we are spending our money wisely. The idea of a think tank, happy to take that on board and discuss it within my team, see what the benefits of that are and investigate that. And so, yeah, I think that's a great idea. So thank you for putting that one forward. In terms of the assets, we are disposing, but I think, and not covered in here, but what we could, well, in the part 2 report, we have explained ways of disposing of our assets and how we can improve the financial position and capital receipts back to the council. But we are also looking to acquire other assets to again assist us as a whole, I think is all I can say at the moment as in the part 1. So, but it is covered in the part 2 report about how we're exploring those options to improve our position.
Thank you, Steve. Just a reminder to members that the asset register is actually on the public website if you search for it. It's well buried, but it's on there. So you can get a list of all the assets that the district council owns off there. So you still got your hand up? You want to come back? Okay, Kate.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to note really that I'm aware of the amount of redeployment that went through the commercial team throughout the crisis that we've experienced this year. And I think that's worth noting for this report, because I think that even in the light of that, there's been some significant progress. So I just wanted to congratulate the team. But also I noted in here there's mention of other efforts across the community and across kind of our workforce as well, of people that have been taking on extra workload in order to make sure that we can continue to progress the commercial agenda. So I just wanted to say thank you and to make sure that that was noted.
Thank you, Kate. And yes, it is noted, and it is. And there are other departments within the council that have gone and done things that have been very strange for them, not within their normal remit whatsoever. And some officers in particular who've taken on, how shall I say, some very challenging tasks because of the current situation, and people in various departments. And I think everybody's done really very well with it as a staff. And as I just echo your thanks, and I think all members' thanks to the officer corps and everybody who's been involved in getting us out of this situation and dealing with this situation. We see it regularly when we do the COVID response board meetings, and there is an awful lot of work going on in the background that most people and the general public don't see. And you know, it's well outside the normal remit of what we would do as a council. So to say thank you to everybody for that. Any more questions or anything on that one? No. Anything else on this report? No, thank you very much. So the recommendation is to note the report. So we'll take that as noted. Don't think we need to vote on that particularly because it's a note. And that brings us to the end of our meeting. Thank you, everybody. Been quite a long meeting, quite challenging one, particularly the part 2 bit. So thank you, everybody, for your time and indulgence. Thank you, Kate, for chairing a part 2 when I couldn't. And if I don't see you all before then, happy Christmas to those I don't see in other meetings before then. And thank you all and good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Chair. Good night.
Good night.
Happy Christmas, everybody.
Christmas.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.